Hey there nerdy nerds, this is Jackie, your nerdy crafter. The mold used in this tutorial was generously given to me by WHOLEPORT. If you're looking for good quality and inexpensive materials, which is really rare because usually when you get inexpensive things, they're usually not good quality, but when it comes to WHOLEPORT, they're good quality. I can vouch for them, especially for the items that I have received. So at the end of this video, I'm going to show you guys exactly what they sent me. So for this tutorial, I'm using their mold, this square one, and I'll feature the other stuff at the end. Got it? So for this week's tutorial, you guys will learn how to make this really cute koi pond with a bit of a fountain and waterfall. For those of you who follow me on Instagram, you know that I've given them names. This koi fish is Jim Bob, and his girlfriend Mindy Jane. Don't ask. Just don't ask. When it comes for the rocks that I used for this project, I just went to the park and grabbed a handful. You don't need to buy rocks, you could just find them around. It's your taxpayer money that's paying for these rocks anyways, right? Shh, don't tell anyone. Here's what you'll need for this project. White, translucent or pearl, orange, black, green, rounded and pointy tools, small piece of wax paper, rubbing alcohol and a Q-tip to clean your piece up, a glue gun, your epoxy resin, some rocks of different sizes, and this square mold that I got from WHOLEPORT. If you want to make your own square, make sure you use the method that was used in the bento tutorial. The first thing you're going to do is mix in your orange with some white. Now remove a smaller piece out of your bigger piece, and with your larger piece, make a teardrop. There you go. Now from this teardrop shape, make a point like this with your fingers and push the front. So you'll get a bulge that's going downwards. Now keep that same point and push throughout the whole body so that it looks like this. Now before we go any further, you're going to want to decide the curve in which the koi is going. And since my first koi is going this way, I'm going to make my second one going the opposite direction. I made this koi fish with exactly the same methods, so all you have to do is just vary the colors. Now make two small teardrop shapes, flatten them out, and place one on each side of your koi for the fins. So far so good. Now for the tail, you're going to make a chubbier teardrop and flatten it out again between your fingers, like this. Now place it at the tip of the tail. Voila. Now take your pointy tool and give it a bit of a texture. Now when it comes to the tail of your koi, you don't want it sitting flat. You want it to be vertical. Now for the final fin, make a really long teardrop shape, flatten it out between your fingers again, and stick it on top of your koi, like so. Now take your pointy tool and make some jagged edges on top. Keep going. For the eyes, take two itty-bitty little black spots and place one on each side of the head. Make sure that it is symmetrical. There you go. Now for the designs on the koi, it's really simple. All you have to do is use the same method that we use in order to make lettuce leaves. So take your piece of clay and flatten it out between your fingers until it's extremely thin and starts tearing. Once your piece starts tearing like this, then you have the perfect shape in order to put them on the koi, because you don't want the edges to be even. You want them to look natural and organic. So start tearing off pieces like this and then place them randomly on your koi. For this particular koi, he's going to have white and black designs. Here are our two koi fish. Now feel free to play around and experiment with all the colors that you want. If you got too many fingerprints or dirt specks, feel free to take your rubbing alcohol and Q-tip and clean it up very gently. It's all nice and clean, no fingerprints or dirt specks. For the lily pads, take as many different shades of green as you'd like, flatten them out as thin as you can, and cut circles out of them. If you don't have a circle cutter, that's okay. Feel free to use a tip of a drinking straw. From this piece, cut a tiny little V, and here's your lily pad. Make as many as you'd like. When you make them, don't remove them from their surface. You're going to bake them as they are on this piece. For the grass, take a darker piece of green clay, roll them out into thin snakes. Try to get at least 5 in there. Now you want to make sure that each snake is longer than the depth of your mold. Now take another piece of green clay and make sure that the bottom is flat. And make sure you bake it this way. Now that we have all of our clay pieces, bake for 10 minutes at 275 degrees Fahrenheit. Make sure that your oven was preheated. Now mix your resin as per the instructions on your box. It really depends on what brand you have. Just make sure you follow them. Now before we pour in the resin, take some small little debris and rocks that you've collected and place them at the bottom of your mold. Once you've covered all your corners, start putting in your resin. You don't want a thick layer. You want just enough to barely cover all the rocks and debris. And make sure that you do leave the debris in there. It makes it look more natural. Now let this sit for 4 hours before we start placing the koi. After a few hours, your resin should feel hard but still sticky. And this is the perfect time to start placing your grass and your fish. Now let it dry for at least another 3 to 4 hours. Once you've given the first layer enough time to dry, mix in another batch of resin and pour it on top. Make sure that it covers just above the koi. Now you're going to let this dry for at least another 12 to 16 hours. Once you've let the resin completely cure, gently take it out of the mold. Now you're going to take a bunch of small to medium-sized rocks and your glue gun and start gluing the rocks all the way around your piece, like so. Now do all the sides. Once you have your rocks glued all the way around, make an extra layer of rocks higher than where the water is, so that you have a border that is about this high. Now do it all the way around. Once you have your border all done, stop at one corner. From here, we're going to build a kind of rectangle sticking out. So you're going to build a bit of a pillar on this side with your bigger pieces of rocks. So what you want to do is keep building upwards until you have a more or less flat top that goes about 1 inch over the end of the rocks here. So we don't want it thicker than this. Now we're going to build upwards so that we create a bit of a fountain on top. If you've played Tetris, this is the time to use your skills. There we go. Now up here, you're going to make the same thing that we did down here. Start building a border around this rock. Now build a second layer up here. Ta-da! Now what you're going to do is take your glue gun and squirt it all the way around the inside of this area. What we want to do is close up any and every single gap possible, so that when we put the resin, it doesn't leak out from anywhere except the front. So you want to make sure that you coat it so that none of the gaps are actually exposed. Feel free to give it a second coat if necessary. Now take a clear paper bag and cut out one thin strip out of it, like so. Take your small piece of plastic and glue the tip right on top of your little fountain. There you go. Now mix one final batch of resin. Once your resin is all mixed up, start pouring the resin really gently on the top. Now I saw this technique on Sandart's video. I'll leave a link down below to where I saw this. Now let it fully cure, and then you're done. All done! Now it is time to show off my WHOLEPORT loot. So obviously what I got from WHOLEPORT was this mold that you guys saw. The only thing I probably would have done differently with this mold is maybe that I would have cut them into actual sections so that it's easier to pop out your piece. Next I got this really cool cameo that kind of reminded me of Sailor Moon just because of this little emblem down here. And so I made these two pieces. This cute little Sailor Jupiter cameo, which is a gift for my friend, and she knows it. She totally knows it. And this Sailor Moon one. Now before you guys ask me where I got these stickers from, they are not stickers. I found these images online, so if you know who the original artist is, just send me a link down below and I will post it in the description box, because I don't know who the original artists are. I also got this mold and this candy shaped mold that has cupcakes, waffles, and other cakes, but I didn't get a chance to use them yet. I'm sure I'll be featuring some of the things I'll make with them in future videos. And finally, I received this mold from WHOLEPORT. Now, I did cast some resin pieces in there, and I forgot them for 3 days. I was like, these are not gonna come out. These are so not gonna come out. And they came out like a dream. They just slid off of the silicone piece. So I would have to say by far, this is my favorite. And I made these two pieces from this mold, and the details are absolutely fantastic. totally my favorite item from the whole package. I'll leave a link down below for each of the items that I got. Remember, if you have suggestions for future geeky tutorials, leave them in the comment section below. And if you haven't added me on Facebook, Twitter, DeviantArt, and Instagram, make sure you add me. And if you haven't clicked on that subscribe, do it. Until then, I will see you guys next week.